Do you want to be an expert on every legend? Here are 3 tips for every tactical ability to give you an edge against the opposition. If you're taking a duel, you can place your riot drill so it shoots flames towards the enemy's general direction. And then you want to position yourself behind it with the flame between you both. Thanks to your passive, the enemy will be highlighted through the flame, but they will have a hard time actually seeing you. If the enemy is playing a defensive legend such as Watson or Rampart, you can break their ultimate, walls, or other defenses by placing a drill through a wall right next to those abilities. If an enemy plays a door, it can be worth it to stick that door with your drill. It won't instantly destroy the door, but it will force the enemy off of it. There's even a chance that the enemy backs off in the direction that the door would open, meaning that if you swing the door on them, the flame will follow as they try to get out of the way. It's very hard to see any throwables or grenades when you are inside of a smoke. This means that if you've smoked any enemies and they are inside of it, you can throw ordinances like a frag grenade or an arc star inside of it to almost guarantee damage and maybe even free kills. If you're stuck in a position due to an enemy holding your angle, you want to smoke where they are standing to cut off their line of sight and allow yourself to push up as long as they are blinded. Keep in mind, however, depending on the smoke, there's a small chance they'll try to take a wider angle just to get a shot in at you. Also, try to avoid smoking yourself unless absolutely necessary. Using your smoke launcher counts as a one-handed action. This means that you can use the smoke when doing other things such as healing, using a zipline, shooting, reloading, looting, or hitting the like button on this video. Bloodhound's scan has a range of 75 meters. As such, if you're going to scan a building or position for enemies, make sure that you've actually pinged the building to ensure that you're actually within 75 meters before you waste it. It's a good idea to scan an angle before peeking it. If you're in a team fight, you're generally playing the backlines as a bloodhound because the information from a well-timed and well-placed scan will do more for your team than just hitting a few shots. When using catalyst piercing spikes to block a door, turn 90 degrees and aim at the door hinge. This means that the spike's core would be protected between the open door and the wall, making it harder to destroy. You can throw the tactical underneath you when taking a duel and hide behind the orb. It has 250 health and a larger hitbox, making it very difficult to actually hit you. When taking a fight, either make sure that you have set up piercing spikes to block the enemy's rotations, or just throw it straight on an enemy pushing towards you. If they stop to shoot you, they'll stay in the trap for long enough for it to activate, slowing them down and taking damage while giving you an easy kill. The traps stay forever, so you can spam them wherever you go. As a caustic, if you're playing against an enemy who can cover your line of sight, such as a Bangalore with her smoke launcher or Catalyst with her dark veil, you might want to throw your barrels into said obstruction. This will highlight the enemies if they're in your gas and allow you to see them despite other obstructions. The traps make great makeshift covers if you're in a sticky situation. If you start taking fire and you have nowhere else to go, just start dropping traps around you. If enemies shoot the barrels, they will emit gas, which makes you harder to see, and also every trap has a health pool of 150 health. When placing caustic traps on a door, you don't want to place them all the way up against the door, as this make them breakable through the other side. Give the trap a little bit of breathing room as you place it. If you deploy your drone while sliding, for example if you're sliding down a hill, you'll keep going in the same direction. You can use this to your advantage by maneuvering your drone and looking around while sliding down a hill without losing any rotation time. The Neuralink passive highlights enemies within range and line of sight to your drone. As such, you want to place a drone in positions where enemies can be walking up, or just quickly throw it out against a wall when taking a team fight to get the highlight bonus for free. The drone will appear with an orangey glow to enemies, and seeing as it doesn't take damage from the ring, it is a good idea to fly the drone through the ring when possible, as it is that much harder to spot the drone through the orange ring effect. The knuckle cluster is loud, and since it doesn't require grenades or ammo, it's safe to say it's generally always available. You can use this to your advantage by popping a knuckle cluster to mask the sound of a revive, or even you pushing up to the enemy. Never stick the knuckle cluster right on top of a door, as it disappears when the door breaks. Stick it next to the door or through the doorway instead. It's very easy to get out of the way of a knuckle cluster once it's on the ground, but it also sticks to an enemy, so always try to hit them with a stick instead of trying to aim it in their general direction. Gibraltar's defensive dome can be combined with his ultimate to stop any team from pushing up on you. But keep in mind, if you throw your ultimate after the bubble has made the bwomp sound, the bubble will go down mid-ultimate and hit you and your team. If you need to dome defensively and hold off attackers, do not peek through the center of the bubble. Instead, walk out the side of the bubble and peek through it with half of your body. This allows you to limit your angles and peek one enemy at a time, even if they're all pushing you. This, combined with the gun shield, makes you very hard to pick off. You can also use the dome aggressively by throwing it straight on top of the enemy team's position that you want to push. This cuts off their sightlines and allows you to take a bubble fight once you're up close. You can throw the gravity lift on doorways and certain corridors to stop enemies from running through them for 10 seconds seconds to give your team a chance to reset. The gravity lift is also a great tool to bring your teammates back to you if they get knocked out of position. Throw it at their feet and let them take it towards you. Due to the duration and the speed of Horizon's tactical, the best way to abuse it is by throwing the tactical down, getting on the lift, and then wiggling around in midair. If you take too much fire, you can drop off, use the extra movement from your passive, and get back on the lift to start it all over again. The dock heal drone has a lot of unintended uses. One of my favorites is that it can act as a piece of deployable cover. Not only does it passively heal you and your teammates, but it will block shots from enemies and will cover most of your body if you crouch behind it as a lifeline. You can save on inventory slots by not carrying syringes when you are playing lifeline, as the dock drone can accomplish the same thing on a cooldown. The drone disappears if used in the zone, but it takes about 2 ticks before doing so, meaning you can use it in the zone for up to 20 health per person. If you throw Loba's bracelet when standing still or walking, you won't be able to run. But if you throw her bracelet while mid-run, you'll be able to keep running around, but also slide until the bracelet comes down. The bracelet can be thrown through windows and the smallest of gaps, and you can use this to your advantage to surprise your enemies. After throwing Loba's bracelet, you should probably keep an eye on where it is going. The bracelet will travel in an arc and take a lot of time to do so, sometimes even overshooting your target. You can activate your Loba tactical again to instantly send the bracelet down and save yourself valuable time. Ashe's tactical moves very slowly, and if an enemy sees it coming, they'll simply step out of the way without getting themselves snared. So instead of throwing it straight at an enemy, try to predict where they will go and place the arc snare behind cover to act as a trap. It can still activate and snare an enemy for up to 5 seconds after landing. If you hit an enemy with your arc snare, they will be stuck for about 3 seconds. Pair this with abilities or grenades, preferably arc stars, to guarantee a lot of damage or maybe even a knock. If you throw a snare at a Horizon lift, Octane jump pad, zipline, gravity cannon, or other movement ability, this kind of disables them for a bit, as nobody can take them without getting snared and stuck in place. The snare will keep holding them in place until it reaches the time limit. Mirage's decoys have a pretty short cooldown, so it's a good idea to try to keep one active at a time. Place decoys in front of death boxes, windows, or other positions where Mirage would stand for a high chance of a bamboozle giving the enemy's position away. If you throw a decoy out but the enemy is smart enough to understand that it is a decoy, next time pretend to be the decoy yourself to surprise them. If you hold a grenade while sending out your decoy, it will show a unique animation while running, which will make even the more experienced players at least a little bit confused. You can actually decide whether you want to turn your shield or just move it around. If you activate your tactical while aiming within about 140 degrees of where it is pointing, you will send the shield towards your ping as well as turn it towards it. However, if you try directing it outside of that field of view, it will continue facing the same way. Your mobile shield can actually be used when you do anything else, including shooting, aiming down sights, healing, and even reviving your own teammates. The shield has a cooldown of 15 seconds, but it starts counting once the shield goes away or is destroyed. Seeing as the shield has a 20-second duration, its effective cooldown can be up to 35 seconds. Octane's stim does not affect how fast or how far you go when taking its jump pad. As such, don't use the stim before or during the pad. Wait until you hit the ground to use it instead. You can use the stim right before popping a Phoenix or medkit to get the stim's effects, but without actually losing any health. Octane is the only legend who can still bunny hop heal properly. To abuse this, pop a stim, initiate a run slide, start healing, and then spam your jump input along with side strafes as you hit the ground. This makes you near impossible to hit as you keep the run speed velocity despite using a healing item. Jumping after a grapple hits a target will give you extra momentum and make the grapple carry you a lot farther. If you're taking a fight or just want to get a quick reposition, you can always abuse the grapple hop. A grapple hop is a quick vertical leap which you can pull off by looking at the ground, grappling, jumping when the grapple hits, and then instantly canceling the grapple with a crouch or grapple input. This will throw even the most experienced player off guard. Grappling an enemy sure is a fun little gimmick to do, but keep in mind that you're unable to do anything as you're grappling them in, while they're able to shoot you back at any time. So be very careful if you do this. If you place Rampart's amped cover out in the open with enemies looking at you, odds are that they'll break the cover before it deploys, as the cover has less health during the animation. So instead of hiding behind it, step out of cover and attract focus from the amped wall until it has finished deploying. You can actually place a amped cover to just quickly block a grenade explosion, and if you place it properly, it even blocks caustic's gas. If you're holding a position, consider double layering your amped covers. As in, set up an amped cover at the angle that you want to hold, and then another one a little bit farther back. If your cover goes down or the enemies happen to rush your walls, you can fall back to your secondary piece of cover and continue laying down fire. Though keep in mind this is a double-edged sword, as the enemy will have an advantage on you if they push up behind you and take that second layer of cover away from you. The silence is a one-hand activity, but a left one at that, which means it can be used when holding and throwing a grenade simultaneously. Not only that, but the silence shares the same trajectory as a thermite, meaning you can surprise your enemies with a lot more damage than they bargained for by throwing both at the same time. In the same vein, if you look up and throw a silence straight into the air, it will take 4 seconds for it to hit the ground. This can be combined with a frag grenade, which also takes 4 seconds to hit the ground and then instantly explode. Most players will respect the silence since it deals 10 damage and disables tactical, ultimate, and some passive abilities for 15 seconds. When it's on the ground, it will last for 10 seconds, and as such can act as a perfect way to block a door or a hallway. Contrary to popular belief, you do not want to use Seer's tactical as the entry into a team fight. Wait until you or a teammate lands a lot of damage on an enemy, then line it up with your passive and then deploy it to cancel their healing or reviving as you push up. If an enemy is behind cover or holding the angle that you want to push up on, you can actually throw Seer's tactical at them. Enemies don't want to get scanned and will almost always choose to jump out of the way of the tactical, if just for a brief moment. This might be the timing that you need to get closer uncontested. Many Seer players use their passive to look around and then switching to the tactical to scan, when they could just be holding the tactical button to achieve the same thing. If you crouch in the middle of 2 doors and activate your tactical, this will break both of them. This also works if you just want to break one solo door. If you jump backwards fast enough, you also won't take damage. You can instantly activate your rockets to land behind you by running in one direction, and then as you keep running, look down and crouch, and then immediately jump and hit your tactical button. The timings take a little while to get used to, so make sure to practice this in the firing range so you don't hit yourself when you try this out in a real game. You can cancel Valkyrie's tactical by popping a healing item. Depending on how many rockets are sent, you get a fraction of the cooldown back, meaning you could theoretically stun an enemy with a single rocket every few seconds. Make sure to always keep Echo's position in mind as you're playing the game. The floating Echo is very visible to enemies and will give away your position, so it's a good idea to recall Echo after using the Echo relocation. To build on that previous tip, if you have Echo recalled, you can deploy Echo and instantly dash to him by holding the tactical button. Use Vantage's tactical ability preemptively to spot out of the way places where enemies may be hiding. If you spot enemies, you can turn around midair and double jump back from Echo without taking too much damage. Despite what the name implies, fences are not traps. You generally want to set them up for a defensive perimeter and stop the enemy from pushing you, but that doesn't mean you can't use them as traps. You can place your fences in a doorway, stand on top of your node, and wait for somebody to run past before stepping off of it. This will activate the fence in their face, stun them, and turn them into an easy kill. If you get chased and need to heal up behind a door, always make sure to place a node on the other side before closing it. If an enemy walks up and starts breaking that door, you can create a fence through the door to stun them and then easily kill them. Just because Watson is a defensive legend, that doesn't mean that her tactical only has to be used in between fights. You can quickly cut off rotations or space by deploying your fences and denying the enemy the ability to push forward. If an enemy is on a high ground above you, you can quickly place fences all around you to catch them if they happen to jump down. If you accidentally hit the tactical or just changed your mind while casting the animation, you can cancel it by climbing something. Never activate your Into the Void when standing still or when walking. Always start with a slide jump followed by dodging and jumping around as you activate the tactical to make yourself a lot harder to hit. You can also activate your tactical before doing a full wall jump, as your animation will finish before you hit the ground. To make a super safe peek, activate your tactical before looking around a corner. This allows you to check up on your enemies without risking yourself taking damage or getting knocked. And if you want more tips for every legend, check out the video on the screen. Also, while at it, check out Offstream Podcast, link in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all tomorrow.